The National Center for Civil and Human Rights is a 42,000 square foot campus in the heart of downtown Atlanta, Georgia. The center is an educational and cultural institution that believes in civil and human rights for all and the power of people to make this real. Our permanent exhibitions connect the history of the U.S. Civil Rights Movement to the ongoing efforts to protect human rights around the world today. Designed by renowned architect Phil Freeland, the building's curved exterior walls represent two hands coming together to protect something precious: human dignity. Its textured exterior shades of beige and brown represent the spectrum of people and cultures in our shared global community. Atlanta is the birthplace of the civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and home of the national headquarters of organizations that powered the civil rights movements in the 1950s and 60s, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. As the cradle of the movement, Atlanta is the most fitting home for a national institution that honors and celebrates defenders of civil and human rights in the past and those who fight for justice and equality today. The first floor of the center focuses on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The Voice to the Voiceless Gallery displays Dr. King's personal artifacts, all from the Morehouse College Martin Luther King Jr. collection. A large-scale art installation, Fragments, features Dr. King's distinctive handwriting with words and phrases from his sermons and speeches etched in metal and illuminated, allowing visitors to experience King's ideals in his own words. In the center's main lobby, located on the building's second floor, visitors encounter a bold, colorful human rights mural designed by Paula Scher. The mural is a powerful collage of 20th century protest posters from social movements around the world. These images surge outward from a raised open hand representing unity. The individual posters create a singular artwork representing global solidarity in struggles to achieve human rights, justice, and dignity for all. The piece has become iconic, recognized as the quintessential symbol of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights and its mission. Rolls down like water. The American Civil Rights Movement exhibition transports visitors to the segregated South of the 1950s, where both Black and white families enjoyed community events, pageants, and religious gatherings. Each group joined clubs and social organizations, and each served in the military. In every instance, they were separated by a strict system of legal segregation. The voices of some of the most powerful segregationists echo in the exhibit's first gallery, and a wall of laws show the thoroughness of segregation's reach in everyday life. Despite the oppressive nature of life under Jim Crow laws, Atlanta's African American population managed to build vibrant communities. The city's Auburn Avenue district was a hub of Black commerce, religion, and entertainment. The institutions of the Atlanta University Center provided African Americans a distinguished higher education. The city of Atlanta became nationally recognized as a home for African American empowerment. The Supreme Court's decision in Brown versus the Board of Education on May 17, 1954, ruled segregation in public schools unconstitutional. With this monumental federal decision, advocates for racial equality challenged Southern states and cities to integrate, leading highly organized acts of civil disobedience and peaceful direct action campaigns, ushering in the civil rights movement. The movement also responded to heinous acts of violence against African Americans, such as the lynching of 14-year-old Emmett Till and the unjust trial for his murder. The movement diversified its tactics with organized boycotts of stores and segregated city bus systems. Individual students courageously integrated Southern schools, often requiring the protection of U.S. Marshals. In cities such as Greensboro, North Carolina, and Nashville, Tennessee, college students staged nonviolent sit-ins to protest segregation, asking to be served at whites-only lunch counters. Experts in nonviolence train demonstrators for what they could endure, preparing them by acting out scenes before sit-ins and creating plans in the case of arrest or harm. Visitors to the National Center for Civil and Human Rights have the unique opportunity to participate in a simulated sit-in experience at a lunch counter. In 1960 and 1961, hundreds of students known as Freedom Riders traveled throughout the South on interstate buses to test a Supreme Court decision declaring segregated facilities for interstate passengers illegal. Students of different races from all over the country participated in the rides, subjecting themselves to assault, firebombing, and arrest. From Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to numerous unnamed men and women, activists of all ages were routinely beaten, harassed, and jailed for their participation in nonviolent protests and direct action. Some were killed. But these attempts to silence determined civil rights activists failed. From the mid-1950s to the early 1960s, the movement that started as a series of unconnected local efforts became a national, coordinated campaign. On August 28, 1963, hundreds of thousands of demonstrators descended upon the nation's capital for the March on Washington for jobs and freedom, and peacefully made demands. The historical event successfully pressured President John F. Kennedy and Congress to draft a comprehensive civil rights bill. In the gallery featuring the March on Washington, visitors experience the event's uplifting energy. They see footage of King delivering his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, hear the exciting sounds of protest chants and songs, and learn more about the key players who ensured the march's successful planning and execution. The success of the March on Washington and its demonstration of the movement's strength and support was met with violence. Just 18 days after the march, the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama was bombed, injuring 22 people, mostly children, and killing 4 girls between the ages of 11 and 14. Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNair, Carol Robertson, and Cynthia Wesley. The act of terrorism in Birmingham signaled the beginning of an era of pain and grief for the civil rights movement, as those who opposed equality responded to each of its successes with increased violence and racial terror. On April 3, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his final speech at Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee, where he was supporting a strike by sanitation workers. The next day, he was assassinated, shot on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel. Visitors experienced breaking news from CBS anchor Walter Cronkite and Robert Kennedy's announcement of King's death, just as people had on that day. Visitors ascend a staircase modeled on the Lorraine Motel to a landing with church pew seating, where they become participants of Dr. King's funeral. Archival footage shows the service at Ebenezer Baptist Church, as well as the procession to the public service on the Atlanta University Center campus. Rolls Down Like Water concludes with a tribute to Dr. King and all martyrs who lost their lives to make the United States a stronger nation. This Requiem gallery recognizes these immense losses while celebrating accomplishments in the courts. Interactive tables allow visitors to learn more about the movement's victories and important figures, including former Atlanta Mayor Shirley Franklin and one of the center's founders, Evelyn Lowry. The walls of the gallery display state and federal laws passed to undo the system of segregation and serves as a reminder that much work remains. Spark of Conviction, the global human rights movement, presents what happened around the world after, and in many ways, as a result of, the U.S. civil rights movement. The gallery's entryway features a vibrant collage of photographs of nonviolent social change movements around the world, including iconic images of anti-apartheid activists in South Africa, the mothers of the Plaza de Mayo in Argentina, People Power in the Philippines, and Tiananmen Square in China. Everyday people taking positive action in the fight for freedom and dignity. Opposite those collective movements, visitors face interactive mirrors where they're asked to pick a trait that defines an aspect of their lives. Upon selecting a trait, visitors meet a person who's been persecuted for the very trait they share. Inside the main gallery, visitors learn how human rights are defined and enforced, why they are important, and how they are violated or protected in the modern world. One side of the gallery introduces some of the most famous human rights champions in modern history, such as Eleanor Roosevelt, Nelson Mandela, and Mohandas Gandhi. In the middle of the gallery, life-sized portraits of advocates from around the world today stand together. These include Sister Consuelo Morales of Mexico and Nobel Prize winner Dr. Denis Mukwege of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Opposite the heroes of human rights, a police lineup holds the most notorious human rights criminals in modern history. Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Idi Amin, and others all presided over mass murders on an epic scale, including genocide. None of these perpetrators were ever held to account for their crimes. An exhibition of justice provides profiles of current dictators around the world today, as well as legal efforts to bring human rights violators to justice. Updated annually, a color-coded world map shows countries where the rights of people are upheld and where they are not. The Ethical Footprint installation presents the human rights backstory of everyday objects like sneakers, flowers, and chocolate, and explains how people's rights can be abused in the production of these consumer goods, as well as how our consumer choices can help protect rights. The power of people to create change weaves through all of the center's exhibitions. These themes are celebrated in the Shared Accomplishments Gallery. This dynamic and inspirational final space houses an energetic film installation to convey a message of unity and hope that inspires visitors to do what they can in their own lives to promote and protect human rights. The shared journey towards freedom culminates with a final message from Dr. King. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.